Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Dad Made a Nerd podcast. Today we're talking about all things CinemaCon, Superman, Tron Ares, and the Beatles. Cool. So, hey Dad, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you, Jacob? Have you been good this last week or so?
Yeah, it's been busy for both of us. I know we've had a lot of other priorities outside of this podcast that's kind of stopped us from making as many episodes. I've had a show, you've had your work, all of that kind of stuff. But it's good to be recording again.
Yeah, life gets in the way, doesn't it? So understandable. That's where we are. But we're back. We're back with Dad
Yes.
Made a Nerd episode 6, and good chance to get talking about some of the things that have been released over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and like Jeff Goldblum says, life finds a way.
We'll talk
We-
about that in a bit because I think if we catch up on some of the stuff that we've been watching, I've got something to kind of contribute into that space.
Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So we're going to be talking about CinemaCon. CinemaCon, for those of you who don't know, is an interesting big originally press event. It's quite similar to Comic-Con and those big announcements. And over the last few years, CinemaCon has gone from being something that isn't really publicly spoken about much. It's very much more for investors, the production companies themselves, to let advertisers know the current slate coming out in the future. But the last few CinemaCons have become these bigger press events where, similar to the attraction people have to announcements at Comic-Con, have also been held for events like CinemaCon. So there's a few bits that we can kind of touch on and talk about that have come out over the last week at CinemaCon. And I think the first major thing we want to touch on is James Gunn's Superman coming out this summer. They released a trailer, an extended look. There was about 5 minutes of Superman, the scene that we see in the trailer where he's crashed down in the snow and then his dog comes and gets him, Crypto. And then after that, there's a few little snippets of trailer footage we've actually already seen, but it kind of extends for a bit longer. So we see a bit more. You have seen this, haven't you, Dad?
Yeah, no, I've seen it. I think we talked about James Gunn's Superman as well. So if people haven't listened, we've got a previous episode where we've talked about some of our top films. This was in there, up there for both of us. I think we both rated this one as like on number 2 most anticipated film. So
Mm.
it's up there, and I think the trailer adds a little bit of that's quite interesting. I think it basically looks like it shows a little bit of the first part of the film. We're guessing is probably the first part of the film, and I particularly see the Fortress of Solitude, which I think looks pretty good. But yeah, what are your thoughts about the trailer that's come out, Jay?
Yeah, so just to break down what actually happens in this kind of extended clip, we see Superman in the snow, very injured, before whistling for Crypto, his super dog, who comes over. And there's a very, to me, James Gunn gag where Crypto's kind of just beating the crap out of him because he's just trying to play or whatever, before taking him to the Fortress of Solitude, where we see a bunch of, I don't remember their names, they're robots that help in the Fortress of Solitude. One of them is voiced by Alan Tudyk, who voiced Clayface in the Harley Quinn animated series, and a different version of Clayface in James Gunn's Creature Commandos, set in this universe as well, who nursed him back to health by magnifying the sun's light onto him and healing him. And then the kind of regular trailer we've been seeing plays a bit after. My first reaction to watching this was a bit mixed. I was excited to see the scene. It's cool. It shows David Cornsweet Superman in a cool light. I think he looks cool. I'm not a big fan of the suit still. I just think the overboxers, the pants over the top, they're just really large. They hang really low. They're like granddad pants. They're just not skin tight, which is so strange to me because David Cornsweet, like, you can go to his social media, he is built. He is prepared for Superman. This man is a tank now, and he's really tall as well. If you've watched the new Twisters film, he shows his height next to Glenn Powell, and Glenn Powell also a well athletic figure. And so I just find the suit being quite a disservice, being quite baggy on him. It doesn't give Superman, in my opinion, personally. I think the logo, I think the colors are cool. That's different. There's been a lot of hate online about this film, as well as a lot of love. Crypto, I think, although a lot of people are hating on it, I think it's a brilliant idea. You see what's trending, Crypto, a dog. It has a lot of mass appeal. It's going to sell a lot of toys. I think it's actually quite genius introducing Crypto into this film. It's a big draw in for families and kids. So I think that's very smart. The Fortress of Solitude to me looks amazing. So comics accurate. And then I think the device also used to magnify the sun's rays onto Superman is really cool as well. And then a few things that I'm not a big fan of are, one, the gag where Crypto is just beating up Superman because he's not noticing the fact that he's really injured. I just think that's a very James Gunn joke. I just kind of, it didn't sit well for me. It didn't feel very Superman-esque. It felt very Guardians of the Galaxy, which just isn't who Superman is. And then also, why is the sun hurting Superman?
Well, this is something I want. Well, for the first point, I'm not a massive dog fan. I know that's a very unpopular opinion, but I just really wasn't bothered about the dog joke or like having fun with the dog, because that's just not something I really care about.
Yeah, when it
I'm
comes
interested
to
about the Crypto. I'm not a massive. You just get it. Surely it's just going to be a little bit of a gimmick character that's just in there. I reckon the amount that is in this film is probably not going to be much more than this clip, would be my guess. I don't think he's going to be a huge part of it, but I'm also not particularly bothered. I'm not a massive fan of Crypto, but I agree with you. It definitely feels like something that's going to sell toys and stuff like that. On the Sun one, my question was what face he's giving there, because I thought that might be his pleasure face, if I'm honest. Like, what? Like, because you're right. I was looking at it thinking, why, if every other, particularly other kind of versions of Superman in different media, typically when the sun gets shined on it, it's like, well, that's him getting energy and being rejuvenated. And you're right, he looks like he's in pain, which makes me think, is that David Cornsweat Superman's pleasure face?
I
Question.
think you just interpreted that in a way that I don't think anyone else will. It seemed like he was in pain. I just think, we've seen Superman countless times, and the sun, like, is such a strong symbolism for Superman, and how we've seen him, countless times. We see it in comic books. We've seen it with Henry Cavill's. We've seen it with every past iteration of Superman, where he flies up into space and it heals him and it gives color to his cheeks again and whatever, and powers him up. And there's argument that, well, his bones are probably broken and they're like snapping back into place through the sun healing him or whatever. I think it's a very James Gunn thing to do. I just don't know if it was the right thing to do. I'll have to see it. And also, Superman, like one of the most powerful, invincible characters in the DC universe, do we think kryptonite is going to be into this film?
Oh, good question.
Because otherwise, how else is he so injured?
It's very difficult to have a Superman film without kryptonite, isn't it? The other thing I was thinking is the actual device that they use to shine the sun on him looks like it's been borrowed from the Santa Claus movies. When he moves the microphone glass in order, the microscope, in order to be able to see the thing around the outside. So I wondered whether they borrowed that prop from the Santa Claus.
Well, canonically, Santa is a character within the DC Comics universe. Maybe that's a cameo we all want.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe Fortress of Solitude's just in Santa's backyard.
Well, there is snow. There is snow. You could argue it's probably Christmas time. You don't know if he hasn't put the Fortress of Solitude next to like the North Pole.
Yeah,
North
unbeknownst to Santa, it rises from the ground.
Maybe this is the kind of thing that people aren't expecting, aren't they? Of like Santa in Superman would be where it's at, and obviously maybe he needs to read a card and magnify it, which is the reason why he's in pain. Maybe they just moved one microscope over too much.
Yeah, maybe that's the third act battle that we're really waiting for.
Yeah, Toy Santa is actually
But yeah,
still
no,
around from Santa
but you
Claus 2.
raise a really good point. In Superman's a really difficult character to create good stories from. I think that's why largely there's a lot stronger Batman stories out there. I mean, look at the shelf behind you. That whole top row is entirely Batman. We don't have that many Superman stories to pull from. Well, we do have a lot, but not a lot of the high quality. And that is largely because how do you make a compelling story about Superman going through struggles when physical struggles isn't really a hurdle to him?
Yeah.
And
We
so that
talked
is,
about that, didn't we, on the last issue when we were talking about anticipated films. So if people want to go back and watch it, I suggest you do or listen to it. But you're right. I mean, strength is something which, you know, you can't just have a bad guy that constantly just gets stronger. It's either got to be psychological, something that he's lost or something that he's struggling with. And if I'm honest, this is where some of the original Richard Donner, original Superman films from the late 70s, early 80s did really quite well. The reasons or the things that Superman was going through actually positioned itself really well. So, but what they didn't have is all this multitude of characters that we're going to have in the in James Gunn Superman, and we don't know how they're gonna land. More of this though does kind of add to the intrigue. It's definitely one to watch out for. I personally hope that it lands really well, but I am skeptical. I think we said this. It's anticipated, yes. Do we think it's going to be, wow, this is a game changing, one of the best superhero films of all time? I'm skeptical of that's going to be the case. The fact that you've got crypto in there definitely makes me think, oh, the fact that you've got people talking about things that are quite trivial, like the hair of the Green Lantern and stuff like that, is going to be things that are going to distract people. What you want is a good story at its heart, and the trailer doesn't give too much away about the story, does it? Like you're saying, we don't know yet if there's going to be kryptonite. We don't know what those things are going to be about the impacts of Superman. How is it going to take a story beyond what we've already seen in other media in the past? I'm not sure.
yeah, no, good point. And it is also the fear of, is this film going to be overcrowded? We've got Superman, we've got, who seems to be Brainiac as, I assume, the main villain. It seems like it's also going to deal with conflict in the Middle East, or kind of war and conflict, something with no obvious good or bad sides, which is always a good issue for Superman to tackle, these moral, political issues. And then we've got Lex Luthor, and then they're thrown in Guy Gardner, Green Lantern. We've got Hawkgirl, we've got Metamorpho, we've got Crypto, and all of these other characters that are surely going to show up. So at what point does this move away from being a Superman movie and just become a DC Universe Justice League style film? We've got Maxwell Lord, we've got Rick Flag Sr., like all of these characters. Is this going to end up being a satisfying movie that feels complete when we see the whole picture?
Yeah. Do we have an idea of the running time? I mean, you presume from the amount of stuff that's in it, it's going to have quite a long running time. But
I
we don't know yet,
wouldn't
do
be
we?
surprised. Well, there have been test screenings and stuff. James Gunn's been saying he's been doing a lot of them, making a few different edits, just based off audience feedback. So I'm pretty sure if you try, you can go out there and find the whole film and plot leaked. I don't want to do that. That's going to ruin the film for me. So I'm all right. Go do that in your own time. But I wouldn't be surprised if very early on, Act 1, a lot of these, Mr. Terrific, all these other superhero characters are kind of taking off the playing field, to show, I don't know, the villain's power or whatever, to really force Superman to be the only opposing force that has to deal with this threat. I would be surprised if the amount of like Green Lantern and Hawkgirl and Mr. Terrific that we've seen is a small amount of it. To me, I wouldn't be surprised if that's amount that we kind of get in the film, little teasers to them, which I'm fine with because it's not their film.
And then what we don't know, what will be interesting, almost as interesting as the film itself, is and what next? How are they going to leave it? How is it going to open up a different world that we've already moaned about a little bit? But how is it going to open up a world that people are actually kind of looking for, aren't they? People are already looking to and what's next. Yes, we want a good film, good story at its heart, but what is this going to lead to?
Yeah, but
And
how is this building a universe?
yeah, absolutely.
Do you think, with that note, so they've been very open about Millie Alcock, who's most recently been seen in Game of Thrones, the new House of the Dragon show. She is playing Supergirl. They've been teasing little set images of their filming Supergirl at the moment. We know Jason Momoa is going to be on board to playing Lobo. Do you think we see her in this film?
You wouldn't be surprised if like an end credit scene or something like that might link to it. But I mean, Jason Momoa as well is a really good casting as Lobo. You got to say,
Yeah,
he just
and
does
also
look like Lobo. But
with the success of
yeah.
Minecraft doing incredibly right now in cinemas, Jason Momoa is in a very nice spot.
Yeah. So
I
interesting, isn't it? Where it's going to go? Interesting.
I think that we will see Millie Alcock's Supergirl in a post-credit scene. Just Supergirl. They've been filming it. I don't think they would have been in such a rush to get this film done, or get this film in production if it wasn't for the fact they wanted her to show up in Superman. And again, it's teasing that wider universe. It's that connected synergy going, well, you've watched this film, you want to watch this one too, because they're connected. Yeah.
That's interesting. And we don't have any more casting information, do we, from Batman Brave and the Bold? Do we? There's still no information, is there, about?
No, I still think they're holding fire on what they're doing with Batman. We've talked about this in depth before about the DC universe on a past episode. So you can go listen to that. It seems very staggered. I still think Robert Pattinson's Batman is a visually great match with David Cornswett's Superman. I don't know if I want Robert Pattinson's Batman to be in whatever this new DC Universe world is, because I don't have confidence in this world yet. I've not seen it properly. We'll know after Superman. But also having a younger Superman with what seems like they want an older Batman with all of his Bat family already doesn't seem like they match as contemporaries, which is also visually quite a strange one for me personally. I'm avoiding thinking about that future Brave and the Bold because I don't even know if it ever will happen. I mean, it happens countless times with films, doesn't it? They never outright cancel films. Apparently, there's still going to be a Rian Johnson Star Wars trilogy. No, that's never going to happen. Patty Jenkins is making a Rogue Squadron Star Wars film. No, again, it's never going to happen. Like, they just let these things kind of die out into thin air because they don't want to say, oh, no, we're just not doing it. Yeah. So they just say, oh, what? Oh, maybe. Any more thoughts on Superman?
No, I think that's the only thing I'd suggest is if people want to hear us talking about more Superman, then we've got a previous episode that people can listen to. But no, what's next, Jay? What are the next things you're going to talk about?
So another kind of major announcement that got a lot of attention at CinemaCon is the upcoming Beatles movie.
The Beatles are a huge part of certainly my childhood, my growing up, my listening. So I'm quite excited about a film about the Beatles. We've had quite a lot in the past. There's quite a number of different kind of classic Beatles films. So it'd be interesting to see where this one plays into that. And it's always about who's going to play them, isn't it? And who's going to pick up some of those roles.
So for some information on this Beatles film, Sam Mendes is directing 4 separate films that each focus on an individual band member of the Beatles, which is set to release in April 2028. And they'll be coming out, I believe, very close to each other, months or if not weeks apart, which is an interesting idea. And the cast has been announced now. So Paul Mescal is going to play Paul McCartney, who has recently been in Gladiator 2, star in that. Barry Keoghan will be playing Ringo Starr. Harris Dickinson will be playing John Lennon. And finally, Joseph Quinn, Johnny Storm himself, will be playing George Harrison. And so each film will focus on the perspective from each one of those guys. Already, I am very skeptical about this. I feel like generally there might be 2 of these films that large audiences are interested in watching. But do you really expect audiences to go and watch all 4 of these films in the matter of months? because not only is that like a lot of a similar film to digest in an
Yeah.
already crowded movie space, but that's a lot of money to go to pay to see what is essentially one really long film.
Yeah, you can imagine getting Beatles. I think this will develop over time. You can imagine Beatles fans in particular being keen to watch it, which's got a particular demographic. But I didn't realize there was 4 films that they were planning, and then
Yeah,
yeah, that is a strange one, that isn't it? And I suppose the key thing is what are those 4 going to pick up 4 different eras of parts of the thing? It's interesting, isn't it? I'm I usually you'd say, well, let's see how the first one does. There might be a second one if it's already committed to, and then they'll fizzle out and maybe be less popular. But do you say they're all going to? Their plan is for them all to come out in a really short space of
they're
time.
all going to come out in April in 2028. So I think
Wow.
the idea is they're trying to make it event cinema in the idea of the way you watch a streaming show week to week is the idea they're doing that with the cinema where you go watch part one first week, then you go watch the second one about Ringo Starr and then John Lennon. But let's be realistic here. How many more people are going to want to go see the one about John Lennon than are going to go watch the one about George Harrison? Like, there's only so much Beatles, I think, that people are going to bother to go watch in a cinema. And I reckon a large reason for making them in one go is synergy. Also, probably to save on budget, they'll film it all in one go, make that deal now. Um,
Well, you're right. The cost to the audience in that is quite. You could almost. It would make sense if this was 4 films that kind of come out on a streaming platform like Amazon or something like that, and there'd be one a week that would be coming out. I'm not sure how that would work as a cinema experience, because how would you kind of work out how each film is done? They might collectively do well all together, but in reality, you're going to have the first one that comes out is going to probably do quite well, and then it'll fizzle out, won't it?
yeah, I
I,
think this
I
is.
mean, it's good to experiment with cinema, though, isn't it? It's good to experiment with different ideas of how to go about it, but it feels like you're almost playing with quite an expensive way of doing it from an audience perspective, which feels a little unfair.
I think this is obviously an example of cinemas trying to recoup a lot of the attention that streaming gets and trying to compete with streaming. And this just doesn't seem like the smart way to do it. Um, because unlike streaming, you pay a monthly subscription and you get all of it, with that. This is you're asking audiences to go to the cinema, something that people are quite stained against now anyway, especially after COVID and the way cinemas are run just doesn't seem to be very inviting. Like I recently just watched the Minecraft movie and my cinema experience very much tainted my opinions on that film. I struggled to distance myself from the screening and how undisciplined they are there. So you're asking audiences to go do that, but 4 times for 4 very similar movies where I think realistically, how can all of them be as equally entertaining as the other? Um, I'm excited to see how it does. As you said, it's an experiment. It's messing around with the cinema medium. I think it's trying to build the idea of event cinema where you go watch the sequel directly after the previous one instead of having to wait 2 years for a sequel. However, I will say recently was attempted with Horizon, that Western film that came out a few months ago. Part 2 was supposed to come out a few months after that, but it did so poorly it's been pushed back, and I believe it still hasn't even released yet. So we'll see. We'll see.
I
But
was just
that's kind
looking.
of
I
all
was
the
trying to
information
remember
we have.
I was trying to remember the film that came out in the '90s. It was called Backbeat, where the film is about the kind of early years of the Beatles and some of like the way they became famous and stuff like that. But most of the main parts were played by Americans. So the only thing you do say is praise the casting, that they do look like they've done some good casting, though, although they're mainly
Oh
Irish, not
yeah.
exactly Liverpudlian.
I
But like it's at least they're not American, which just it doesn't seem a way to go. So it's got to be an improvement from that,
I think
maybe.
in terms of the cast of the Beatles, they couldn't have chosen 4 bigger male stars for like the current
Yeah, yeah.
upcoming stars. You know, you've got Barry Keoghan, Harris Dickinson, Joseph Quinn is getting loads of work at the moment. And I think Paul Mescal's obviously kind of like the biggest standout in terms of his recent success in Gladiator 2 and how he's just kind of these are what strike me as very Gen Z TikTok social media stars. Like they have a massive following on social media with younger audiences, and I assume making a Beatles movie, that's the audience they're trying to attract to bring in, because the older audiences who grew up with the Beatles, who are big fans of the Beatles for a long time, probably going to see the movie anyway. So I think from a casting standpoint, it might be really smart.
Yeah, and you can imagine that summer of 2028 is probably going to be full of lots of Beatles music on playlists as well. So something that we could look forward to, perhaps.
Yeah.
What's next on our updates?
Finally, we right before recording, we decided to watch the new Tron Ares trailer again that also came out at CinemaCon. This is starring
Jared Leto.
Jared Leto, yeah, thank you, and seems to be a sequel to Tron Legacy, which came out a while back, around 2003, I want to say.
Is it that long ago?
I could be wrong. I remember being a wee lad when
I think this might have been one of
Tron
those
Legacy.
films that I made you watch when you were really young.
Oh no, I am completely wrong. 2010.
I was only 7 years apart.
Oh, but the first Tron came out in 1982, or the first Jeff Bridges one, 1982. So
I was born.
Jeff Bridges is also returning for Tron 3, Tron Ares. And yeah, what did you think of the trailer?
Well, the style of it. I mean, I think you look at Tron Legacy as well. I mean, I think what that did was the style of the film was really good. I quite liked that film, but a lot of it is the nostalgia with Tron. I think it looks quite good. There's loads of questions in there for me, like how old is Jeff Bridges going to look? Are they going to de-age him? Or is he going to be an old man? How many links are they going to have to some of the other Tron films? But visually, it looks pretty stunning. You can hear, I think the last film had Daft Punk as like the kind of key soundtrack that was pretty key behind it. I don't think they're coming back to do the soundtrack, but the sound and the audio, which is part of the experience. I think this is what you would definitely say to me is one of those films that you just have to see in the cinema, because I imagine with the environment, the sound, the visuals,
the neon techno sound
stunning.
Design, I think is something I love that genre. It's almost like clean computerized Blade Runner, and it seems like I don't want to think about how it logistically makes sense in my brain for this computer programming stuff to be existing in the real world, because that makes no sense to me in a weird way. But I'm here for it. It looks cool. The trailer looks really fun. It is a teaser, so it got the vibe of what Tron 3 is across, and I'm totally here for it. I'm excited to see more. Aside from that, it looks good. It has the aesthetic of Tron. An aesthetic that I personally would have preferred Fantastic Four to go toward, instead of going back to like the 60s style. I much prefer Fantastic Four looking forward. I think that could have benefited from more of a Tron aesthetic, but alas, we're getting a 60s style Fantastic Four. But yeah, do you have any other kind of worries?
Well, just the obvious thing to do, wasn't it? So people don't know the original Tron film. You have a computer programmer, goes into a computer program, goes through loads of challenges, manages to find his way out. The second one is about his son going into that computer program as well. It looks from the trailer, which is the obvious thing to do, more of that world coming out into the real world,
as was teased at the end of Tron Legacy.
Yeah, and I do think that, I mean, we are in a different, I mean, not to be really philosophical, but we're in such a different world than where we were, I'd say even back in 2010, you know, with so much conversation about AI and artificial intelligence, does bring some of this franchise into real current what's going on in the world. So actually, I'm all for it. I love that the first one came out just before I was born, so I watched that first one as a young child, you know, absolutely obsessed with science fiction when I was younger, and that was really good. And And then obviously when the second one came out, you were probably very young as well, so got you watching that as well. It's just one of those classics where, as long as it does the franchise justice, I think it will be really enjoyable. But I think no matter what happens, I think it will be visually, storyline hopefully is good, but visually, I think this is going to be like a real experience of watching it. And I think if they
I
get
hope
the
so.
sound right with the visuals, it's going to be just really enjoyable, isn't it? And it's science fiction fun at its best.
Yeah, no, completely. I completely agree. I'm excited for it. It's been a long time since I've had Tron.
Yeah.
I think, especially with the way VFX have come forward since 2010, Tron, like already the bikes with the light trail behind them
Yeah.
looks so crisp. Mwah! I
One
love it.
one of the reasons I chose my car that I've got is it's got one of the solid lines right across the back, which looks so much cooler than just having two lights on the side. Jared Leto casting as a kind of main part. I'm
This
not
guy gets
huge fan
so
of
many
Jared Leto.
roles, but
Yeah,
yet seems like to woof them all. You got Morbius, you got the Joker. Like Jared Leto is one of those strange actors who gets cast in lots of things, in lots of high budget things as this prestige actor, but then has such a negative response when it comes to especially IP related characters. So DC,
yeah,
Marvel, those kind of things. I think it's a risk with him. So far, it looks fine. I think the teaser was smart to show we're teasing the world of Tron returning. That's what's exciting. It's not necessarily our star Jared Leto. It's the world and whatever story will follow that is what we want to be there for.
yeah. No, I definitely think, and real. You can imagine some game tie-ins coming out as well because they never really landed a really cool Tron game. I think they had one originally on the like proper Spectrum, like back in the day, that was really cool. But
Yeah, the best Tron game I can say I played was the mod on GTA, where it is just the light cycle races. And that's
yeah,
not even a Tron game. That was just a mod that became really popular.
so it just looks
Yeah.
cool, doesn't it? Let's be honest. But so let's watch this space, and that comes out in October, doesn't it? Is it October? I'm sure it
I
comes
think
out
it's toward Christmas. Yeah.
October this year. Yeah, so watch this space for that one. Looks good.
Yeah. We'll have a review in as soon as it's out. Cool. Should we pivot to our final little segment of the episode?
Yeah, we're just going to catch up on what we've been up to, what we've been watching, and just do a little bit of
What
talking about what
we're
we've been on with.
doing.
Do we need its own theme tune? Go on, what have you been watching, Jay? What have you been watching or reading or other stuff? Go on.
So I've been on a bit of a vintage spree recently. I've not had much time. I've been doing a show. So I've been rehearsing a lot, doing shows for that. So any kind of free time is spent kind of preparing for that. But I have been able to get a few good gems. So I just finished before we were recording, actually, finished reading One Bad Day, Catwoman, by G. Willow Wilson. So if you don't know, One Bad Day is a series of Batman-centric villain stories. There's a few behind you there, Dad, where based off the famous Alan Moore Killing Joke comic, which kind of centers around the Joker, in him famously saying that the only difference between a normal person and him is one bad day, teasing kind of his origin of how he became the Joker. A few years ago, 2022, they decided they're going to make a single issue story for each of Batman's rogues called One Bad Day. So I managed to pick this up on Vinted for super cheap. Really good place to find comics. So I just read that. It was all right. It was a decent story. Not my favorite One Bad Day comic, but we might have an episode in the future about our rankings of them and the absolute comics and all that stuff. Other than that, I have read. Oh yeah, I have finally finished reading all of Invincible. I finished the third compendium, all 15 years of Robert Kirkman's Invincible run, which is currently being made into a show. Season 3's come out now, and it was great. I finished it. You could definitely tell toward the end how budget was cut and things were rushed, which is sad, but I was so happy to finish it. If you don't know the ending, which I know you don't, I won't spoil anything. I wasn't the biggest fan of how it ended at first until in the final panel, a character says something which almost answers a question which he was asked right at the start of the comic run, like season 1 of the show. and it was him almost answering that, and that explained to me why it ends the way it did. And then I decided I loved the ending. So actually, very satisfying ending. I kind of wasn't sure about it for a while, but then I finished it. I thought about it, and I went, actually, this is really solid. So I did that as well. I watched. Sorry, my final point. I went to cinema. I watched the new Minecraft movie.
And I was surprised by this because I read your reviews on your J Reviews if people haven't seen it, and I was half expecting you to give it a 1 out of 5, but actually you
was
really
I
positive.
I was amazed at how strong of a film this was. Obviously, it's been kind of slated online a lot in its trailers and stuff of people going, it looks stupid, it looks silly, it won't work. However, this film was made with so much appreciation and love for the source material of the game. You can tell that Jason Momoa, Jack Black, all the creators are really much love this game, which is, you know, the most successful game in the world. And unlike the Super Mario Bros. Movie, which personally I found alienated audience members who don't know anything about the game, Minecraft is very inclusive. In if you know a lot about Minecraft, you're going to really love all the Easter eggs and the cool hidden details and features that people know and love from the game being out for so long. But also, if you don't know nothing about Minecraft and you go watch this film, you're still going to have a really fun time without feeling like things are going over your head. Mostly what makes the film is Jason Momoa and Jack Black being bloody hilarious with each other. They're so funny. They have great chemistry, and it's really funny film. My issue with seeing the film was that, so if you're not massively on social media, are you, Dad?
No.
Have you been seeing the chicken jockey kind of trend?
No, I haven't. No, I'm not on TikTok.
Yeah.
No, thanks.
So, I didn't know it was as big as a trend as it was until after I went to this cinema and then found all of it out online. So Chicken Jockey was a very, very famous YouTuber who sadly died, who made mostly Minecraft content. And so they have a little reference tribute to him in the film where his logo is a little baby zombie on a chicken, like Minecraft chicken and zombie. And he fights Jason Momoa, I believe, in the film. And so there's a moment about 2/3 of the way through, everyone's probably seen clips everywhere, where Jack Black's like, oh, it's Chicken Jockey. And so a big trend came about everywhere where people are basically just going absolutely mental, screaming Chicken Jockey when that scene happens, throwing popcorn, jumping around, taking their shirts off, doing lots of insane things. And every video you see, it's just people at the cinema doing even more and more mental things to make a TikTok video. Very similar to how a few years ago when Despicable Me came out, a big trend with young people like teenagers and stuff was going to the cinema in suit and tie to watch Minions, you know, very silly. And I went to the cinema in quite late at night.
Those people just didn't just wear suit and ties.
Because people would show up in like floods of packs, and it's Despicable Me. It's like
much of smart audiences.
You don't go to no, but it became like a very, very popular internet culture kind of thing where you'd have hordes of people showing up in like a black tie, almost. So, so with this kind of trend online, I went to quite a late screening. It wasn't very busy. I went after opening weekend, so it wasn't like right at the height of the film. It's still doing incredibly well, obviously. And so sat directly behind me were about 5 or 6 like 20-year-olds who very much affected my viewing experience of this film. I didn't mind the murmurs and stuff for this family film around the cinema. That was fine. But these guys were so obviously like having such inauthentic reactions in the cinema that it really took me out of it. Because I knew they were doing it for a TikTok. I knew they were doing it because they want to make a video. And so when they were like forcing everyone to clap at the end of the film, I refused because I go, well, I rarely clap at a film. This is
because
not
it wasn't authentic, though, isn't it? So what you're saying is all authentic reaction makes sense. But
I've spoken to you how much I love like an audience reaction in the cinema. It's one reason why I love going to the cinema. The most extreme example I can think of is when I went to see Endgame or Spider-Man Far From Home and Daredevil shows up or Andrew Garfield and the audience gets excited and goes, what? Or like moments where everyone gasps and stuff and you feel that kind of energy, and it's really cool. It's a powerful moment. And when that happened, when I was watching Minecraft and everyone screamed chicken jockey, it was just so incredibly inauthentic, and for the sake of them wanting to get views, that it just distracted me from enjoying the film completely. And so that's kind of all I have to say about what I'm into. It was just a very weird experience in the cinema, which I haven't experienced much. When
And I have been in the cinema with you before as well. So murmuring when people are sat next to you in the cinema is usually not just don't do it when the next to
yeah,
so
I am a strict
that.
cinema goer. I like and also I'm not very sociable. So if people are trying to like talk to, I go to the cinema late at night after a long day of working, and I'll be in joggers, I'll be in a hoodie. You don't want to talk to me. I'm not there to socialize. I'm ready to like zone in, lock out of the real world, and do that. And so when people try and like yapper and try and clap to me, I'm not in the mood to be spoken to.
Yeah, when Mamma Mia 3 comes out, Jay, maybe that's one not to go to the cinema to watch. Or maybe I'll go with you. We'll dance at the end together. Yeah. I don't think they're going to make Mamma Mia 3 though, so I think we're probably safe.
I think should be okay.
Should I go with what I've been
most
watching?
of ABBA's songs now.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So what are you into?
Yeah, so I've not been reading a huge amount, but I did after we did the issue where we talked about our favorite Batman books for new starters. I read Batman Ego, one of the ones that I've been meaning to read for a while. So I read Batman Ego. Quite liked it. I thought it was interesting because it was Dwayne Cook who's the author. He talks in there about this was his first stab at Batman, and he's like, I liked some bits, and he was critical of himself as well, wasn't he, with the story? But concept is quite good. So Batman and being a separate person from Bruce Wayne and having a kind of dialogue, kind of conversation as he is in a bit of a dream state. So, but I quite the artwork's nice, and I thought it was quite good. And then following on from that, there's the book, the version we've got of it's got some mini stories at the end as well. So I finished off reading that as well. So some Catwoman stories in there. So links to your Catwoman. It's strange how we were both reading Catwoman at the same time.
I can't say I've read a lot of Catwoman before, so the fact that we ended up reading Catwoman on like the same days, it's just quite a strange coincidence.
Strange. No, it is. The other Catwoman I suggested was the one that links
When
to the
in
Long
Rome.
Halloween, because we said we liked the Long Halloween in that episode as well.
Yeah.
So that's probably what I've been reading. In terms of watching, there's a few things. Number one, in the last week, I've done a marathon of 1 to 6 of all the Jurassic Park / Jurassic World films, mainly for your sister, who was really into it.
And how old is Tallulah?
Tallulah's 7.
Okay, I realize I said that as if I don't know. I know how old she is, but I just wanted to iterate the fact of how cool my little sister is now for being a 7-year-old who wanted to watch all the Jurassic Park films, and I believe the first one was her favorite.
Yeah, when you say to her which is your favorite, her favorite is as is
Vindication.
Correct. I know. I remember I first watched Jurassic Park for my 10th birthday. I was allowed myself and I think it was 2 friends to go to the cinema to watch Jurassic Park. And little at the time we realized how much of a amazing film it was going to be and some of the history and stuff. And that's really relevant because again, Jurassic Park is one of the films that we did not vote in our top 5 on most anticipated films. So, but we'll probably be able to talk about that when it comes out as well. But yeah, we watched all 6 of those. So we watched each of the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World films. The first one's definitely the best. There's a bit of a yo-yo curve in where it goes good and then doesn't particularly end great. But you got to love a dinosaur, haven't you? And then other things in terms of watching, I've been watching the episodes of Daredevil, so I'm guessing that we might in our next issue talk about our the finale of Daredevil Born Again is coming out this week. So my guess is we're going to do an issue just looking at that.
Yeah, so I didn't mention as well, and I've already yapped on enough, but I have recently just re-binged through every single Daredevil season as well as Defenders, right in time for Born Again. I'm watching it now. I will watch the finale when it comes out on Wednesday, so we've both watched it, and then our next episode should be a review talking about Daredevil Born Again as a show. We'll have all of our thoughts, all of our opinions. If anyone has any questions for us to answer on the podcast, please message us on the Dad Made a Nerd Instagram. yeah, and we'll try and answer those in the episode.
Absolutely. There's my Daredevil, my picture in the background. And the last thing for me is I just finished series 3 of Reacher. I love Reacher.
Figure.
I love the Reacher books. I've read a lot of them, most of them actually, the Lee Child books, and the Reacher series with Alan Richardson is absolutely brilliant.
Have you just wait? Did you say you've just watched season 3?
Yeah. Watched
Is it good? I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's really good. It's based on The Persuader. The Persuader is actually one of the best books, and it's the depiction of the series compared to how good some of the films are. How the books are is really good. So one of the things, Tom Cruise did a couple of films as Jack Reacher. He was never Reacher. If you read the books and you read the size and the way that
5'7"
the things that the character does, you were watching the films and okay, they were films. But he wasn't Reacher. Alan Richardson's depiction of Reacher is, I think, absolutely brilliant. It really gets you to the heart of some of the books. And the first series is based on Killing Floor, one of the best Jack Reacher books. But Persuader is right up there as one of the ones I always remember. And the series is really good. So I rate it.
Season 3 is season 3 as good as season 1? Because season 1 was incredible.
Season 1 was incredible. I don't think it was as good as series. I don't think it was as good as series 1. I think it was better than series 2.
I'm in. That's good.
But I do. The book for me was one of the best Reacher books. And do you know what? The good thing about the Reacher series is they've got such good source material to go at. I love the Lee Child books. This is a man who can be violent where he needs to be, but has got the right principles, and he can kick ass. It's really good. So we finished series 3. I've finished with obviously my wife who watched it as well. So really rate that was the other thing I've been watching. Cool. So a lot of TV more than some of the other stuff.
With that question, then now that we're on the topic of Reacher, just before we close out. So Alan Richardson has been promoting himself to being Batman in the DC universe for a while. He really thinks he'd be a good Batman. He's massive. And Reacher, and so what is your opinion on? Do you think Alan Richardson would make a good Batman?
I think he needs to dye his hair so it'd be a bit darker. But overall, the size of the man, the size of him, and the posture and the stature of him, I think is absolutely made for Batman. Has he got the personality to really carry it off? I think he'd be really good at Batman. Really good at playing Batman because of his size. Will he be a good Bruce Wayne? Because I think with Bruce Wayne, you need more of the kind of real charisma. I mean, Reacher plays it really, Reacher plays it really straight, doesn't he? He doesn't say a lot. He's not a man of many words. He's not got a huge amount of charisma, but he's really good at that. So I think he'd be you can absolutely see him in a cowl, can't you? You can see him as Batman. Can you see him as Bruce Wayne? I'm not sure, but I think he would be. Who better to cast at the minute?
See, I think it's so strange because I feel bad. There's something about Alan Richardson that I just go, I don't know if I want to see you as Batman. But then I think about Reacher and I go, well, could he play this brute that can easily analyze and win every fight and solve every clue and be super smart at these murder mysteries and be able to talk around people in these detective ways? And then I realized, that is also Reacher.
That's Reacher, yeah.
But then so I don't know why I don't see him as Batman. I don't know.
Yeah, I personally can imagine him as Batman. I'm not sure I can imagine him as Bruce Wayne.
That's interesting because Alan Richardson's been doing more fun roles. He recently played a very silly German soldier in it's on Amazon with Henry Cavill and some of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Not a great film, not gonna lie. My reviews on my Insta, but in that he's very funny. So I think he could play Playboy very well. But I don't know. I think leave him as Reacher. He's doing good at that,
He is good at Reacher. I think what you wouldn't want him to do is not do any Reacher because he's being Batman.
Do you know who I would cast him as if he was in a superhero franchise, though?
Go on.
Sabretooth.
Oh.
I think he could be an awesome Sabretooth.
That's interesting. and with some of the Marvel stuff that we've got coming up, it wouldn't be.
I'm just saying, Kevin Feige, you're looking at your X-Men. You need Wolverine's baddie in there.
Yeah, actually, you can imagine he would be a good.
Maybe
he's just so big, he's huge. But in this latest series, Series 3, there is a guy that makes him look tiny. That's all I would say.
I know who you're on about because I know who he is.
And
so
really
I'm very excited. Maybe next time we're on what we're watching, what we're into, I will have seen season 3 and I'll let you know my thoughts.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So lots there that we've been watching and reviewing, and hopefully people enjoyed listening to us talk about some of the things that we've been liking. This is the end of our episode, and the next one, we think we've given a bit of an idea of what we might be looking at in terms of Daredevil. So hopefully people will join us for that. Is there anything you want to say before we finish, Jay?
No, you can just find us on all socials at Dad Made a Nerd Pod on YouTube. Subscribe, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok, all of that good stuff. Please share and like around. We really appreciate it. We were on a bit of a hiatus the last 2 weeks. We've just been very busy, but we're getting back into it. We're going to have a backlog of episodes we're going to make, so there's going to be plenty of content to look forward to. Other than that, if you have any questions about Daredevil related things that you want to send us before the finale comes out, or just when the finale comes out on Wednesday/Thursday, then we'd love to be able to respond to those on the episode. Aside from that, thanks for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.